Good morning. Good morning. It is Monday, 9 o'clock, and it's Make It Happen Monday. And for those that don't know me yet, I'm Cheryl Andrews. I'm the listening detective, and I'm going to be listening to a really good friend of mine, Mike Turner, and we're going to be talking about cheerleaders and compassionate companions. This series is all about what happens when you push yourself outside your comfort zone, what kind of pushing does work and what kind of pushing doesn't. And this man has been there, has had my back over the last 2 years. He's the kind of person who just always checks in and says, what can I do to help you? And for me, I have found that quite challenging, being asked what he can do to help me, because I've had to take my own medicine. I often ask you at the end of this show, what kind of resource and support do you need? And we all need companions in our life that check on us just as much as we check on them. And Mike Turner is definitely one of those. So please, without any further ado, give him a warm welcome to the show. Mike, it's great to have you here with us today.
Lovely to see you, Cheryl.
Fantastic. So those of you can see on Mike's thing, he's got 6 o'clock club. If you haven't, we've got to just pop it here. Actually, it's let me. I'm in the wrong box there. Let me pop it underneath on the chat box. If you do want to come and join Mike and I, we're both in the 6 o'clock club on Facebook. It's a community that you're running, isn't it, Mike? So tell us a little bit about 6 o'clock club and how you ended up running the 6 o'clock club. Where's it all come from?
There's a long and a short version of this, but yeah, the short version is I decided 9 years ago that I was going to set myself a project to run an event in London on a regular monthly basis, and it was going to be after work drinks, and I was going to invite clients and friends and general hangers on and so on, and that's what I did. So 2013, I set it up as a drinks event. We had about 70 people turned up to the first one, I think, which was fabulous, and it's carried on ever since. Yeah, apart from obviously COVID. No longer run it in London. I run it now in Plymouth, and we're just about to relaunch in Plymouth post-COVID and post-lockdowns and so on. And it's become a great deal more than just going for drinks after work. It's become a real community of business owners. So there is a Facebook group, there's a LinkedIn group, there's a lot more going on sort of around it as well. And it's the foundation of something that I'm going to be doing going forward. Like a much bigger project around the Six OClock Club and around building communities. So that's essentially what it is. So bunch of people that get on well.
Yeah, and it kind of ties into the conversation we were having before we came on air, where you're talking about your journey and your story with your retail business. So tell us a little bit about what that was like as a business owner and having that retail business, and what happened for you in terms of, because you talked about not going out for drinks with your 50 odd staff. Tell me a bit more about that.
So in the 90s, my background is in the clothing business. So I was in fashion, really from when I started work. I started working in the jeans business, and in the mid 90s, I had my own shop. I did what's now called pop-up retail. I had a shop, 5 months, first one. By the time I moved out of that, I had 3 shops. And so I went on, and I ran my own retail business for just under 10 years. At one point, as I think I said to you earlier, but I was employing the best part of 50 people. But you employ people; they're not your peers. However much you might try and encourage that, there is always this sort of employee-employer sort of divide. So that was my experience in that, and it came to a rather abrupt halt, my retail business. But certainly that was one part of the experience. Fantastic fun, lots of fun.
Yeah, and we've talked on and off over the years, haven't we? Talked about how great it was to delegate, and people you could just leave, they'd get on and do it.
Yes.
And that was an important part. But it was just something you just said earlier, especially with Mental Health Awareness Week this week, where we've had this theme of loneliness, that actually as entrepreneurs, as business owners, I think even as parents sometimes, even single parents or, in a couple, they're leadership roles, aren't they, where it can feel quite lonely at times.
Yeah, I mean, there's that expression, it's tough at the top. And as soon as you put yourself in a position of leadership, as much as there might be this thing about the lead wolf leads from the back and so on, and is really trying to care for for your team, for your tribe, whatever you want to call it. Being a leader is a lonely position. It's as simple as that. You tend to find some comfort, if that's the right word, from your fellow leaders, from other people that are in that exact sort of situation. But otherwise, no, it's tough. It's tough running a team of people. Two ways about it.
And I know I'll put it out there to the university, and I'm happy for discussion. And welcome, we've got Develop Together. I think that must be, I've forgotten your name now. Someone that's coming on the show in a couple of weeks' time, but I can't remember. Please do put your name there, because now you've got your company name there. My brain's gone. I do know who you are, really, and it will come back to me in a moment. But there is this thing with the mental health and that, and being vulnerable, sharing, how you think and how you feel. And when I'm really depending on somebody, if they're having a tough time, I know that personally, I would back off and I would preference supporting them rather than asking them for support. And I'm on that journey, that I'm realizing sometimes when I'm in a really bad place, it's Rob Palmer, I do know who you are. Sometimes when I'm in that place, I have realized that actually someone asking me to help them, it becomes a distraction from whatever pain I'm going through, makes me feel of value, makes me feel good. But sometimes helping others means I don't help myself. And so there is this bind, isn't there? When, if people, sometimes when you've got mental health struggles, if you like, sometimes actually being asked to do something would be a great thing, where some people back off and stop asking you to do anything.
Because there's a problem, I think, for most self-employed people, and let's just talk about the self-employed at the moment, whether they run a business of 20 people or they're working just as a solopreneur. Most of them get caught in what I call the capability trap. So they believe because they're capable of doing whatever it is, laying carpets or creating websites or coaching others, whatever it happens to be, that they should be able to do everything. And actually, the situation is, that's not the case. If you look at a business, look at any kind of corporate structure, you have lots and lots of different elements to that corporate structure. Be it finance and operations and sales, marketing, etc., etc. And no one person can do all of those jobs. The CEO might be able to understand, the various elements, but they wouldn't necessarily be able to do all of those individual jobs. And yet we expect ourselves as individuals to be able to do that. And then we beat ourselves up when we can't. And because we are self-sufficient, we are that self-employed person, a lot of the time we find it tough to actually go out and ask for help as well. So you are caught in a capability trap, but you're also caught in this trap of thinking, well, I'll let people down if I show any kind of weakness. And I'm saying weakness again, inverted commas, because it's not a weakness.
No.
It's a perceived or a self-perceived weakness. And we do think, we're letting ourselves down, we're letting other people down. So it's hard, it's very hard, to get through, to crash through that barrier.
Yeah, I know for me, I definitely was in a situation where I was okay delegating tasks. I could go, this isn't my strength. I could see that someone really loved accounts and numbers. And Susie, who's my Facebook manager, she loves creating stuff and she loves sorting out the website. So I'm really happy to go, Susie, this needs to go here. And she just does it for me. So I don't have a problem when I know somebody else loves doing it, paying for it to be done. What I've discovered on my journey is that when you ask a friend if they could just help you out with something, because I was getting into so much debt, keep paying for help rather than that having a peer. You talked about having a peer. I didn't have a strong enough peer network where I could just say, could you help me with this? And I know that, and that's one of the things I want to say to you, Mike, and those who get involved with 6 o'clock Club now in Plymouth, is that you were that for me 2 years ago.
Well, thank you.
Where you because you offered it and I knew I needed to be better at accepting it, I allowed it to happen. But it was so uncomfortable having your time to me and helping me, guide me about what I could or couldn't do with the website. And it was you giving me some pointers or questions I needed to think about, that I realized that because I had the working relation with Susie, that actually that would be a better way of me getting the website built than rather than trying to employ someone to do the website. I needed someone who understood how my brain worked. It's a very complicated brain. So going back to your story, thanks. We've got Susie also joining us. We've got Rob then. So going back to, you had a retail business, 50 people. I think something you said off air, they didn't invite you out for drinks unless you were paying. So that's, it was like, you weren't really, you're not included in that. And then you had an accident. A really
Yeah.
serious car accident, didn't you? So
I
then
had a
what
very
happened?
big car crash in 2003, and nearly put paid to me, certainly put paid to the business, all the classic things you expect, lost the business, lost the house, lots of other things off the back of it. And started again. I really had to start again. I started again from bed. It was as simple as that. I was bedbound, I couldn't walk. And the silver lining, I tend to look for the silver linings. There's a friend of ours, and he said, "What does this make possible?" And I do tend to look for those sort of silver linings. What does this actually make possible? What it made possible for me was I spent a lot of time. There wasn't a lot of daytime TV in 2003, so I spent a lot of time on the internet, even with the old-fashioned dial-up, and discovered online networking. Pre-existed the LinkedIn and Facebook and so on. But online networking. And then as a result of that, being there right at the beginning of the sort of the birth of social media, that was something I looked at and thought, I got very excited about this sort of digital, technological, social media revolution, and being around at the forefront, and having that little bit of knowledge, that other people then came to me and asked for advice. So that was the start of a new journey for me, really, a new business, a new everything.
Did 6 o'clock come out of that, or was that something you were running as part of your retail business?
No. So the 6 o'clock club came. It started as a boys' project. I'm not a great believer in New Year's resolutions. I'm a great believer in sort of actually setting a goal for the year rather than just saying, "Oh, I'll make sure I do better." You can see I fail the diet one every year, but in 2013, January the 1st, 2013, at 5 o'clock in the morning, before I even went to bed, because I've been up all night, I set myself a task that I would, or a goal that I would run an after work drinks event in London every month for a year. And I didn't do it, actually. I missed August because we moved to Cornwall. But otherwise, I ran an event for every month for 11 months. And I invited clients, I invited friends and sort of colleagues, hangers on and what have you, one kind or another, to come for drinks with no agenda other than to get together and have a chat. And they became a bit of a support network, not just for me, but for each other. So out of that grew a community, which we put online. So there's now 2,500 people in the 6 o'clock club group on Facebook. It goes a lot deeper than that, as you know, because relationships form outside of the formal community, if you like. But that was it. There was no agenda, no nothing. And I moved to Cornwall and started it in Plymouth the following year, 2014. There was a bit of an agenda for that one in terms of, from my part, I needed to meet people. And it's far easier to invite people to your party than it is to go to somebody else's party and only get to speak to one or two people at a time. So that was what I did. And it became hugely successful. I mean, I have to say, but not down. I never put it down to me as making it successful. It was a success because people turned up and because people got engaged and sort of had a good time with each other. And it's
I suspect that's why it's
some other things which we'll talk about if you like. But,
yeah. And I do think that's probably why it's success, but because you don't make it about you. It is about the group. It's about the community. That's definitely where I see the attention going. I did feel my stomach flitter a bit when you said a meeting without an agenda. Now I am much better now. But going back to 2012, I needed those structures in those meetings because my mammalian brain would be going off like, oh, am I doing this right? What do they want me to do? Because I really didn't know how to have these, build those connections where you could be vulnerable, where you could ask for help. I mean, it's been a journey to be on for sure. So you've done 6 o'clock club. It was growing and your digital marketing business was growing. And of course, then COVID happened.
Yeah.
And there's also something else happened as well, isn't it? Did you say you're in hospital again with a?
I just call me lucky. So I was sitting in a conversation much like this in 2017, and sort of starting to wonder what I'd eaten for lunch that was making me feel so uncomfortable, and ended up in hospital with appendicitis, and then that all went horribly wrong, and I ended up the best part of a week on life support, and again had to close my business. It quickly became apparent that I wasn't going to be going back to work, very quickly. I'd made the classic mistake, of everything revolved around me, from sales to management of the business, and I had to close the business, which was like a real knockback, to be quite frank. And then on top of that, my father passed away as well, so you're dealing with all of those things. So I took the best part of a year off, 2017, 2018, and came back, really sort of trying to figure out what the best route would be going forward. If you like, I'll tell you. For me, so I've recognized, and I'm sure I'm not unique in this, but I've recognized, over the course of the last 15, 20 years, we as a society are in the middle of massive, massive change. You can look back over ever since 2000, you see an increasing number of people becoming self-employed. You've got everything that's happening post-COVID with work from home, the great resignation, or whatever it happens to be. And there's an increasing number of people that are going that way in employment. At the same time, you've got, nobody can sort of doubt the technological revolution that's happened over the last 20 years. We all walk around now with a mini computer in our hands, and we live our lives through that thing. And what I keep coming across is people, it's ironic you were saying about the conversations we had about websites and social media and what have you over the last 2 years. Keep coming across people that really are failing to take advantage, and not through, not deliberately. I mean, it's just, this is ignorance in its nicest form, not taking advantage of all these fabulous things that are going on around us. And they're running businesses. They could be doing so much better, and that's really the sort of the thing that I'm looking to build and grow on, or grow and build on from for the future. And the model for this is actually 170 years old. It's the working men's clubs, it's the miners' institutes, it's the cooperative women's guild and the friendly societies, and so on and so on. That's the model for what I want to do. And it was interesting, we talked about peers. So this is peer mentoring, peer education, peer support. A proper community, really, of people supporting each other in business. So that's where I'm heading.
I'm so with you, and that's probably why we're so aligned and why we're talking, because I know that one of my books, hi Andrew, lovely to see you here, we've got Andrew Porteous with us as well, is peer support without peer pressure. And so the peer pressure can sometimes come from what other people say outside, but also come from your own, me, like there's no rules, I don't know what I've got to do. You can get, even though the help's there, you can feel pressure. And it's like, how do you get that support? So with that in mind, and the theme being about pushing, when we're going through change, whether, you've had an accident, you've been ill, or, information revolution, as I call it, is the age of the information, but it's also the economy of attention right now. We are going through massive change in our generation of business owners. So we are going to, at times, be outside our comfort zone. We're going to experience being uncomfortable. And a word that lots of my clients have used over the years is this sort of like, I've got to push myself, or I've got to make myself do it, make it happen. And so I'm asking our guests to sort of, when you push yourself to do something that's uncomfortable, and you did mention off there that you are starting university at 64 to do a master's. And I imagine, I'm making up, but maybe it's not, maybe it's just really easy and you love it and you can't wait to do it. Is that a push for you to do that?
Oh my God, yes.
So,
I mean, I'm feeling like I'm going to be the oldest swinger in town when I hit Falmouth this weekend. I'm going to be walking onto a campus older than most of the lecturers. It's as simple as that. It's fortunate that I don't, whilst I'm conscious of my age in that respect, I'm also, I talk to anybody, Cheryl. Really, I think you know that. And so, I'm sort of, in that respect, I'm sort of, okay with where I'm going. But it's a massive step for me. I went to, well, it wasn't even a university, it was a polytechnic in the mid 70s, and spent most of my time promoting punk rock bands. So I didn't do my academic course. It was as simple as that. I dropped out, and I'm looking now to go and do a master's. It's sort of 0 to 100, in one go. Fabulous program at Falmouth University, really fabulous program. But yeah, it's a massive step change. But I approach situations like this. It's interesting. The temptation, I think, yeah, and particularly when you are that self-efficient, self-starter, all of those kind of things, self-employed type person, the temptation is to run in and do something. And I'm of the opinion that when you don't know what to do, you should do something. But in some circumstances, I think the something that you should do is step back. Yeah, and there's that whole thing about perception, isn't there? When you step back, you get a broader vision of what is actually in front of you. Yeah, when you're right up against it, you can see nothing other than the immediate bit around your eyes. So as hard as it is for me, particularly as well, because I do like to take action, as when faced with those sort of life-changing scenarios, and I've had one over the last 12 months. My partner and I split up 12 months ago. I've had to sort of deal with the fallout of that over the course of 12 months, which has affected every part of my life, my business, my personal life, where I live. I mean, all of these things have changed in the last 12 months. But stepping back and sort of relaxing, as opposed to getting panicky and doing something, which is completely sort of contra to that amygdala brain, that fight or flight thing. Stepping back and relaxing, and then thinking, okay, fine, let's do boom, deciding and going. And I mean, in some ways this Masters has been quite an impetuous decision. I didn't take long to say yes, but in other ways, the idea of returning to an academic environment, looking at the bigger picture of entrepreneurship and looking at how I can better serve the people that I come across in my day-to-day life. This is an amazing opportunity, to be quite frank.
And so when you've got this step back and get a different perspective, and it's about relaxing, otherwise you get I can never say that word,
amygdala,
that part of the brain. It's probably why I use the mammalian brain, because I can actually say that word. When you said it's quite a push to go to university, and I think your language, push is my word because it's come from other clients. I know that I'm imposing that on you in the clean world. That's not what we would normally do. And you sound like you're calling it a step. So there's a step, it's quite a big step, a massive step, you said, going into that. So what happens just before you take a massive step like that?
I've never jumped off a high place with a rope attached to me or out of an aeroplane, but I should imagine it's the same kind of feeling, because there is that real stomach churning butterfly moment, and I think that's probably the sort of the biggest emotion, if you like. Seeing through that, so this is a part of visualization, isn't it? Seeing through it to a situation in 12 months, 2 years, 5 years time, etc. And actually, looking at the expectation, of what you would hope, your desire to be. That I think helps you to overcome that, because nobody jumps out of an aeroplane hoping to crash into the ground at whatever 100 miles an hour it is. They jump out of an aeroplane expecting the parachute to work and for them to come down with a gentle little thud. That's the idea. So
for you there is that nervousness and that sort of stomach churning and that butterfly, and you see through it. It's about visualizing it. So what kind of see through it when you visualize it?
Well, I think it's similar. I mean, if you speak to, you've read things, I'm sure, like this, or seen things, seen interviews with actors, entertainers of one kind or another. A lot of them go on stage, and before they go on stage, they're a complete and utter bag of nerves. They might be vomiting in the wings. I mean, like literally as bad as this. But what they see through is to the applause at the end. So that good feeling that comes with having achieved what they're there to do. And certainly I think we all of us, I mean, like even not necessarily something new, it might be something we do on a daily or a regular basis. If there is that sort of I can't screw up here, I've got to make this good, you're going to be nervous. But actually visualizing the positive effect, the after effect, So, the positive after effect of an entertainer going on stage is the applause at the end, that feel of, yeah, done it, and so on, coming back for the encore and all of those great things. I think given my situation at the moment, there's a number of positive visualizations for me, regarding my future security, regarding my my sort of my lifestyle and what have you, from me personally, but also seeing the fruits of my labors, for want of a better expression, the fact that there is a community of people who are actively engaging, supporting each other, and that classic thing about all boats rising on an incoming tide. That there are people out there that are going, I'm glad I got involved with this. So it's there is a visualization process. That's, for me, that's how my mind works.
So for you, I think that's it. So some people just can't visualize, and I think so. That'll be curious over the next few weeks with the shows to find out how other people do it. I remember from my Slimming World days, they used to have this sort of NLP technique of sort of visualizing yourself slim and transposing it and all that. But there are some people I've learned through the work I do now that just do not visualize it. They have to use a different sense, whether it's auditory or whether it's their senses. But of course, if it is a physical sick thing, and you're using visual as a way of seeing through to the getting it. So when you've done that visualization, what happens to the churning stomach?
It doesn't go away necessarily. It might calm down a little bit, to enable you to take those steps forward. Now we are talking about the reptilian brain coming into effect. I mean, because the impulse is to turn around and go, no, we're not going that way. It's dangerous. But actually then taking those sort of steps towards and thinking, okay, I've been able to put my foot down and the ground doesn't disappear underneath me. That's sort of the way of progress. And then the looking back thing as well. Something else that we don't do is we look at the step in front of us and think, oh my god, this is enormous, and how on earth do we get over this? But we don't look back at the 100 steps we've already managed to get ourselves up, and we don't appreciate ourselves. I think it's we don't reward ourselves, all of these classic things that we know they're cliche perhaps, but at the same time they're cliche for a good reason, because they're actually true. And people that take these things on board and really actively sort of pursue them or accept them tend to do better. I think in any respect.
And I guess the challenge, the thing I talk about clients a lot about, sort of measuring progress and how you're going to measure it, is that when we are in flight, or freeze, and we've gone into reptilian brain and we're sort of in that generally speaking, I'm not saying it's for everybody, but your time perceptions really shrink, and you find it's very difficult to reflect. It's very difficult to visualize the future because you're only here in this moment. So I guess, have you ever had a time when you've been in that, when it's really been like you can't reflect back and you can't do that visualizing?
It happens frequently. This is not something that I've overcome and now I live this wonderful perfect life, not by any means. What I have to do is keep reminding myself. I'm a big believer. I mean, I think we've already talked about visualization. So I'm a big believer in visualization. I love the big bit of paper. I love getting this was something that was taught to me actually when I was recovering from the car crash. Cover your walls with Post-it notes, or get yourself a big roll of paper and roll it out across the table and get the pens out and just sort of start, whether you're mind mapping or just writing stuff down or drawing, doodling, whatever you're doing, actually dumping things out of your brain one way or another. And I'm a big believer in that. I think that works because it helps you then to see that where you're at is only this part of something that is that much bigger. And it puts it into perspective. It's as simple as that.
And the reality is, and for those that are watching the shows, it actually makes it visual. So if you're someone who doesn't have that ability, that's not how your brain's hardwired. You can't visualize. I mean, some people like Susie, who's online, who are very creative, and even you're going, you can just do that. My brain's like, okay. I can trust you guys because I know you can visualize it, but I have to physically see it to see it, if that makes any sense. I don't have that picture in my head.
In this particular sort of instance, It wasn't something that came naturally. So going back to when I had my shops, it was really easy. And I literally, I'd been taught actually, the first shop I managed, bearing in mind it was clothing shops, jean shops. I was taught by my area manager to look at the shop on a daily basis and sort of weigh up the shop, sort of what's on the left, what's on the right, should we move things around, is it raining, so we'll bring the coats out the front, is it sunny, so we'll bring the t-shirts, that kind of thinking. When I had my own shops, I could look at an empty space and visualize the empty space. We'll put the till over there and the shelves over there and the rails down there and so on and so on. So that I won't say it came easy, but it was learned behavior. I learned how to do that. When it came to dealing with problems, the problem that I was actually facing at that particular time was the insurance claim. So the insurance claim, I ended up writing a 60,000 word document as part of my insurance claim. And then on top of that, there's literally, I found it the other day when I was moving house, another folder this thick, literally ring binder type folder of the financial evidence. It was this massive project that we had to undertake. And he wasn't my coach, he was a friend, but he was a coach, gave me the advice about putting all those bits of paper around the walls, the post-it notes, and I thought, you're nuts. When I first tried to do it, it was really hard. Committing words to paper, sticking them on the wall was a tough thing to do. But the more I did it, the more I learned, and that learned behavior then became ultimately, I won't say natural behavior, because there's times that I forget to do it. But when I remember to do it, when I do it, it's then really enlightening. So I think it's a learning. There's a learning curve to it. It's not necessarily a natural.
I definitely think we can learn these things, and it's knowing how our brain works to start with, because sometimes just learning to do that can be, if you're outside your comfort zone already, and now you're going to have to learn how to do post-it notes in space and whatever and visualize, and that's outside your comfort zone. Before you even know it, you have to learn how to learn in order to get yourself out of this whole situation. And Rob just put, it's fascinating to how differently other people process the same underlying technique. And it is fascinating. And on that thing about space, and I'm really aware of time, but I did know you and I would chat for a while, but I really want to make sure we get the aspect of when it's not okay to push before we wrap up today. So hopefully our viewers were okay if we hang on another 10 minutes. Two things on space. When people that know with me working with clean space, we'll ask you the question, where does that need to be? So like that post-it note, or find a space that knows something else about that. Because often moving space, when we put things on post-it notes and put them on a wall, what we perhaps unconsciously don't realize is happening is we're moving it around, and actually we recall information sometimes better when we're looking up or looking away, or we physically stand up and move. And often people stay stuck, don't they, when they're in a problem, like not moving. And so that thing, going right back to what you said at the very beginning, it reminds me about, sometimes it's better to do something rather than nothing. I would say even just physically moving, if you're stuck with a problem or feeling uncomfortable, just actually moving your body or getting up or going to a different space and coming back can make such a shift. But is there a time when you've pushed through that nervous stomach churning thing or visualize it, and it hasn't been the right thing to do? Has pushing
off the top of my head, I can't think of something, but something else you've just said, really reminded me of something I did last week, actually. So I was sitting here, sitting in my dining room, at my desk, and I had something to write, and I was struggling. I was sitting here and just, trying, and all I could do was look at the screen, and it was, coming up blank all the time. I went for a walk, took the phone, and this is the point. So we have this technology here, like we're walking around with. I used a thing called Otter. So otter.ai, it's a transcription. So I was, like walking along the street, like looking like the loony, talking into my phone. And I just talked out a whole load of stuff. And in the talking out of a whole load of stuff, coming back and then sending the text file to myself and then editing the text file, I wrote everything I needed to write. So there's two things with that, isn't there, really? One is the movement, actually physically getting away from the problem, because otherwise you're just sitting here looking and going like, oh my God, what do I do? And the other thing, is that opportunity to brain dump, but do it in a really effective, time effective way, because you just talk and talk and talk.
Yeah.
We're all good at talking one way or another, and it doesn't matter that you talk nonsense, because you're the only one that's going to read it. You don't have to walk around the streets to do it. You can walk around your house. But,
I get caught talking to myself all the time.
But it's a great way of just getting the stuff out, unjumbling your brain, because it's only you that's stopping yourself otherwise.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I found that really effective.
Yeah.
And then you asked about pushing through.
Well, when does pushing not work? I guess that's the question.
It's difficult, isn't it? I mean, I don't think pushing through is always the answer. I think you have to, to do that stand back, reflect. If you were in a battle situation, you're in like the war in Ukraine, it isn't just a constant, like, we're just going to keep going forward. There's this constant reevaluation of, are we going the right way? Are we doing the right thing, etc., etc. And I think you need to be doing that on a regular basis. You need to take time to step back, because just pushing, ultimately you'll run out of steam. You'll run out. You'll be physically too tired. I remember with one of my shops, I used to do shop fitting myself, and with the help of a couple of other people. I remember one particular time we were shop fitting in Plymouth, and I was working through literally until about 3 o'clock in the morning. So I carried on working all the way through until 3 o'clock in the morning. I was due in Sussex, 250 miles away, at 7:30 in the morning. And I left thinking I'll be able to do it, 4.5 hour drive. But I'd hardly slept the night before, let alone that night. I hadn't slept. I got as far as Exeter, and I had to pull into the services and climb into the back of the van and sleep. You can't. There comes a time when just pushing is not the answer. You have to stand back. You have to, refresh yourself. The R&R thing. You have to do that to your body as well as your mind.
Absolutely. And that's probably a good place to stop, because one of the things we talk about on the 7-Day Make Happen Motor is the principles of push and pause. And I'm noticing with people right now, as I think sometimes we end up talking to people, we go for a walk, and it's part of that process to push through the discomfort and to actually get it. And sometimes it almost becomes habitual that we do that talking, which actually becomes a distraction from doing the thing that we're supposed to be doing. And so it's really getting to know yourself well enough so you can tell the difference. But I'm finding more and more people have really lost connection with and understanding of what they need to rest, restore, recharge. That because we can be on all 24 hours a day, you can be learning, you can be asking questions, you can be being challenged, you've got access to stimuli 24/7. Society no longer has the structures in place that says we don't work on Sundays, we close at 5 o'clock.
Oh God, yeah.
All of that, I think we're a generation that of having to be okay with, I'm resting, but everybody else is still working. And it's a whole new mindset just to that, when to rest, when to step back, when to pause. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on the show today. I'm just going to pop the 6 o'clock Club Facebook link in the bottom. If you want to get to know Mike and meet us in the 6 o'clock group, please do come and join us. He's definitely somebody that will be introducing you to lots of people who really cares about your success and happiness. And I can't wait to find out what you discover about entrepreneurs with your masters in entrepreneurship. I know that we'll have lots of conversations, I'm sure, about that in the future. And I know we've got one message from here from Susie saying the exercise we did with physically moving was really powerful, and she's really thanked us for a great interview. So without any further ado, I'm sure we'll have you on the show again, Mike. Thank you so much for joining us. Those of you who know our show well will know this is the time where we ask you the questions. So thank you again, Mike, and I'll see you soon.
Okay, thank you for having me, Cheryl. It's been lovely.
You're very welcome. So without any further ado, I'm a big advocate that in the age of information, you've always got somebody else you can listen to, but it's really important that you take time to listen to yourself. So having listened to us today talking about pushing and Mike's story and community and peer support, just thinking, what do you know now? And what difference does knowing that make? What are you going to do with the information? And it is Monday morning, so we're going to find out from you today as well. Please feel free to share it if you want to below. But what would you like to have happen? Given what you know now, what would you like to have happen? Write down your answer, think about it. As we just talked about making it visual. Sometimes just thinking about it's okay because we can visualize it in our minds. Sometimes when we write it down, we hear or see or notice something different. So write it down and just notice, are you talking about what you want? Or are you talking about what you don't want? Are you talking about something you want more of or something you want less of? So if you are talking about what you don't want and what you want less of, remember the question is to go, and when you don't have that, then what happens? Because it's much easier for your own mind and people around you to support you if you're talking about the outcome, what you want. Your own system can find it really difficult to support you. It'll keep looking for evidence of the things that are not working if you don't know actually what you want. So get clarity of what you want to have happen this week. And then think about, in order for you to get that, in order to make that happen, how do you need to be? What kind of you is that you? I know I've definitely got a clear visualization from Mike today, listening to his bungee jump story, that I need to check my parachute, make sure the bungee jump's okay, and that I need to be, just go with it sometimes, knowing that I will bounce back. How do you need to be in order for you to make happen whatever it is you want to happen this week? And then think about, in order for you to be like that, what kind of resource and support might you need? And this is probably the question that most of my clients really have never thought about. In order for you to be confident or assertive or to go with the flow, whatever the words are that are coming up for you, what kind of resource and support might you need? And I know that what I have needed in the last 10 years since I've sort of really found myself stuck in 2012 was I needed these champions, these people that are in my corner who, even when I'm a snotty heap, they can see the good in me. They know that this moment of snottiness is just because it's a bit like the marathon runner who's like run 24, whatever miles it is for a marathon, but they're on their last mile and they're a snotty heap. They don't go to me, oh, that looks a bit hard, you better stop. They go, come on, Cheryl, you can do it, because they know why I'm doing it. They know these tears are just because I've worked really hard and I've really pushed myself, and perhaps I haven't had enough sleep recently. But they also know I'm near the end of that push zone and that I'm ready to have a rest zone soon. And so having cheerleaders and compassionate leaders, compassionate companions are people who know you well. They know what you want. And if you do get emotional and you get stressed about stuff, they don't judge you for it. They recognize it's just part of the process. Because when you're really working really hard, the last thing you need someone to do is go, oh, why don't you just give up your business? It looks a bit hard at the moment. Or why don't you just do this? Actually, what you need is people that are going to give you that encouragement and those. But how can you find those people if you don't even know what you need? And that's one of the things I'm very grateful for Mike, he just naturally is one of those encouragers. He just pops into my inbox and asks me how I'm doing, and it makes me think about it. And I know that I can say to him truthfully, today is a good day or not such a good day, because he's been there and he's got my back. So who's got your back? What kind of resource support might you need? And maybe just need a big piece of paper to write down all those ideas and post-it notes, as Mike suggested today. Whatever your week's got on for you this week, please have an amazing, amazing week. I look forward to seeing you again on the show next week. And for those that are joining us on the Make It Happen 7-day Make It Happen Motivator, don't forget it starts on the 23rd of May. Speak to you soon. Bye. She says, I've done this twice now. I keep forgetting. I've got this lovely video to do at the end, and then I forget to get it ready. But here we go.